Sometimes we need the large language model to ask us questions, to really guide the process of solving some problem that we have or helping us obtain an answer or an output that we need. And we may not know what are all the steps to achieve that goal. And so what we'd really like to do is we'd have to have the large language model ask us questions. So whenever we want the large language model to ask us questions, the pattern that we can use is called flipped interaction. And so the idea behind this is rather than we're going to flip the interaction, rather than us providing questions and the large language model providing answers, we're going to flip that and we're going to have the large language model ask us questions and we're going to provide the answers. And we can do this in a number of different ways. We can do this to play games. We can do this in order to try to reach some goal, like the large language model keeps asking us questions until it gets enough information to achieve some goal. There's a variety of different ways that you can use this, but this is incredibly helpful when you don't necessarily know everything that's needed, or if you want to be tested or quizzed on something, anywhere where you don't want to be in the driver's seat. You want to really be helping provide information, but you don't want to be formulating the questions or tasks. So let's take a look at an example of the flipped interaction pattern. So the key to this is we start off by asking the large language model to ask me questions. And then we give it some topic that we're going to have it ask questions on. So ask me questions about fitness goals until you have enough information to suggest a strength training regimen for me. When you have enough information, show me the strength training regimen. Ask me the first question. Now this is the basic pattern, is you say ask me questions on a particular topic, and then it's more helpful usually if you give some goal. Why are you asking the questions? Are you trying to have it quiz you? Or are you trying to get a fitness regime like we're in this one and have a fitness plan? Like what is it you're trying to achieve? And the more information, the more context you can give about what you're trying to achieve, the better questions it'll be able to ask you. Now, other things you can do are you can tell it how many questions to ask you, how many questions to ask at a time, a variety of different things. But one really handy thing you can do is end the flipped interaction prompt with ask me the first question. So one thing that you often want to do is do it one question at a time. Now sometimes you'd like to have like 10 questions listed and you can answer them, 1, here's my answer, 2, here's my answer, 3, here's my answer. And you can certainly do it that way if you want to get it all at once and think about it all at once. But a lot of times I like to do it one question at a time. And so if you want to get that one question at a time behavior, usually a really reliable way of doing that is to say, ask me the first question at the end of the prompt. So we're going to generate this fitness plan. So we say, ask me the first question. And it says, great, let's get started. My first question is, what are your specific fitness goals? Are you looking to build muscle mass, increase strength, endurance, performance, or achieve a particular goal? And I go on to say, I'm looking to build explosive power and also prevent patellar tendinopathy from doing jumps on a mountain bike. Now, I don't know if this is a correct pronunciation of patellar tendinopathy, but this is what I've sort of looked up as I've started to experience some pain in my knees at certain times when I've been doing a lot of jumps on a mountain bike. And so I looked it up and this seems to be the reason for it. And so I'm providing that information because I don't necessarily know. Well, actually I do know because that's part of the reason I picked this one is I could fact check it a little bit against what I've read on the internet. But I wanted to generate a fitness regime for me. This is something that I've actually been doing, is figuring out what exercises I should do to help out, my knee and strengthen so it doesn't happen again. And then it asks, do you have any current or past medical conditions or injuries that may affect your ability to participate? Additionally, have you been diagnosed with this, or are you looking to prevent it proactively? And I give it some information. And then it goes on and it asks me how many days per week I can dedicate. And additionally, do you have any access to a gym or fitness equipment? I'm specifying I can work out 5 days per week for 30 to 45 minutes at a time. And then we finally get to the point where it actually generates a full sort of fitness regime for me of what I'm going to do to work on this. Now, what's really interesting is it's gone through and it's taken into account the answers from my earlier questions. And I know that because I've been looking for what are good exercises to help work on this issue with my knee that I've been having. And these are exactly the types of things that you see recommended, like the goblet squat. The split squat is one that you see a lot of times. A lot of different types of squats and things are very helpful, and these are the types of things that I see. But it's also taken the overall context that I'm looking for, weight training. It's gone and generated the entire weight training regime. Now notice at the very beginning, I said when you have enough information. So I said, show me the strength training regime. And so this kind of shows another important sort of power of this prompt pattern, this flipped interaction pattern, is we give it what we're trying to achieve, and how much it should ask you. And basically we set the goal as ask me enough until you have enough information to show me the training. And so it asks questions until it thinks it has enough information and then generates the output. Now sometimes what you'll see when you ask questions to a large language model is it'll tell you, well, in order to do this well, I'd need to get a bunch of additional information. Or it might generate a generic initial plan and then say, but if you provide additional details to me, I might also be able to do blah, blah, blah. And so what we see here is this is kind of getting rid of all that. Let's skip that step of getting something generic or being told that there's not quite enough information, you need to answer questions for us, and let's just say, go ahead and ask us the questions that you need until you get there. Now, this can also be used for doing other things like quizzing, playing games, anywhere where we want to have knowledge in the large language model drive the creation of the questions. And this is really helpful when it has theoretically or been trained on knowledge or patterns in language that will be useful in creating the questions and are things that we don't possess ourselves. So whenever that's the case, it can probably go and more effectively think up questions. So if we say, okay, I need a fitness regime and I have patellar tendinopathy, I may not know, what are the types of questions that you should ask somebody who has this. I may not know what are the types of exercises that are commonly discussed if you have this condition, but it has been trained and seen patterns of language where when people were discussing this particular condition, these are the exercises that were discussed. These were the additional questions that were asked in order to select exercises. And it has access to those patterns from its training data that then help it to select good questions to design that appropriate training plan. So whenever you need the large language model to ask you the questions, or you can think about a customer service example where you're trying to diagnose some problem that a customer has, or automate some response, and you need to collect information and then take action, the flipped interaction pattern is a really powerful prompt pattern to use to do that.